Alrighty, I think we're good to go. Y'all seated? Having a good time? Woohoo! Yeah, a bit, right? Oh, come on, yay! Yeah, got it. Hey, we got 3 good talks. Let me get on my good old reading glasses. Okay, so our next lightning speaker is a senior web developer with a particular focus on application security and longevity in web applications. She started working in WordPress and multi-site in 2004. Did WordPress exist back then? I don't know. She's cautious about third-party plugins and libraries, and she likes moving and crunching data. And I know this. We actually talked yesterday about data a bit, and just doesn't say that. It's actually true. She currently works as a senior backend developer at Noe.eu and maintains and secures customer websites as an entrepreneur at WP Ensure.eu. And I also know that she's Scottish. And so I hope I don't mess up her last name. Please welcome our next speaker, Lisa Marie Karvonen.
Hello. All right, I think that was said quite well there. It was good getting the energy up just before we got on here to depress you all again, so we'll see how it's going. I've got my notes here because I have to stay on topic because I've only got 15 minutes, but we'll see how it goes. All right, so my subject is War on WordPress Part 2. They put Part 2 there, totally boring. This was from Hotshots 2, if anyone remembers, but I haven't seen it in about a decade, so it might have aged really badly. The political landscape has changed a lot since the last time I gave a talk, which was the Part 1. And I like to think of it as a landscape that's been blown to bits. And then it's had kittens released to distract us all. So the world's gone to hell, kittens, distraction. It's great. Despite how heavy the title of this talk is, I'm not here to depress you, because the news does that anyway. But I'm sorry if you do get a bit. I'll try and lighten it as much as I can. I want to talk about what we can do in our own way to help the situation as web development professionals. So let's try and focus on the positive. I'm going to bring you into the depths of hell, and then I'm going to try and make it positive. So you can tell me how well I do later. Let's see if that's working. Here we go. Right, we're going to start with a few facts about website security. The first one is that bots are always scanning your site. As soon as you buy a domain name, within the first month, there's bots scanning your site. It's just a fact of life. And if any of you have got things like Cloudflare or anything else to watch and monitor the traffic, then you should really be watching it because it's quite interesting. That's how I spend my Friday nights. The bigger the surface attack area, the more opportunities they have in order to actually attack your site and find something interesting. And number 3, it's very rarely personal. So the last time we talked a lot about automated bots and the automated ways that they check your site. But this time we're going to be talking about the personal stuff. So, let's see. Time is short. I'm terrible at introducing myself, as anybody knows, because I get all sweaty, and I'm getting sweaty here, and I'm clenching my butt, but it's not really working. My name's Lisa. Up there's like the most important bits. That was me on a really good day. And I speak quickly, but I'm going to try and slow down because I timed it at 6 minutes, but I think I was really zipping past. But I'm not sure I can talk fast enough to cover this entire subject because it's massive. And I said 2 slides ago that website attacks are very rarely personal, but sometimes it is personal, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So, I'm going to take a breath. Here we go. Right. This is a really popular quote. I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. And everybody thinks of Voltaire when they think of this quote. Did all of you think of Voltaire? No? Nobody? Nobody knows this quote even. Oh, God. That's the word. Oh, somebody over there knows. Yes. Brilliant. It's important to hear different opinions and viewpoints and develop our critical thinking skills. So we can see all the shades of grey in everything, in politics, in life, in absolutely everything. And as the world has become more polarized, this thing has become more important. We need to develop those skills. Otherwise, where are we going to end up? I'm not entirely sure. But this is important. So, my first case is a site. It's a customer website that's got content that's not entirely palatable to everybody in the current climate. Now, the website owner is an author and a spokesperson on the child-free choice. So she highlights the dangers of pronatalism and has done so online and on TV and in books for the last 30 years. Her views are not particularly extreme. She's not trying to push her views on anyone else. She's trying to highlight the way that she sees the world. So she'll be reading news articles about things like pronatalism, where people are trying to increase the world's population, and she'll be seeing it through a different lens, maybe from how I see it. I don't particularly agree with all of her views or the way that she sees things, but, still, it's not particularly strong. She's not fighting anyone. She's not doing anything. Her work has always been in support of choice, the freedom to choose whether to procreate or not, without any undue outside influence, whether from government, family, or spouses. When the US Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade in 2022, the traffic increased tenfold, right? Attacks increased tenfold. She was particularly active on Twitter and X, and was plainly able to see the effect particular hashtags had on the visibility of certain tweets. And they weren't subtle about it. If you tag Elon Musk in Twitter with something negative, sorry, I'm still calling it Twitter, it should be X, I suppose. You'll very, very quickly get hidden, This is happening with social media everywhere, so we can't really trust them, but then that's a whole other talk all by itself. Attacks on the site still come in waves depending on what's happening politically, the headlines, and how visible she is. Certain attacks attract more attacks, and it's tricky to keep the site up sometimes because it gets bombarded just because of her viewpoint, and her viewpoint, as I said, is not particularly offensive. So shutting down viewpoints that you don't agree with is censorship, no matter where you are on the political spectrum. Whether you're shutting down the left, whether you're shutting down the right, doesn't matter. It's still censorship. Hate speech and drawing the line is trickier, for sure. Trying to navigate where that line is, because we have all those shades of grey that we have to try and take into account. But we have to draw a line somewhere. But is it just somebody writing a blog article about child-free choice? Do we not want to allow them to say what they want to say? The second case is a multi-site that brings in activists. The idea that we have a free internet, especially here in Europe, is really, really built into us. And we can forget that information in the wrong hands can have real-life consequences, even in Europe, right? So I'm not trying to scare the life out of you, but there are places in Europe where information is used and abused against people. Thank you. Here we go. My God, I'm running out of time. All right. So a website that teaches people how to organize and run corporate and political activism campaigns is always going to be in the crosshairs. In this case, the customer needs extra protection, especially against data leakage and DDoS, as the members are prominent activists and the site teaches people how to run successful campaigns against corporations and governments. So, that site is constantly bombarded. So here we go, get into the good stuff with the ChatGPT images here, right? So, hostile government. There's numerous governments and extremist groups across the world that use gathered information against usually minority groups. What would a hostile government or bad group do with a full list of people who are actively trying to campaign against them? Also, I wish we were only talking about one rogue nation, but this issue is global. I'm grateful that Finland on the whole has kept a level head, although sometimes we're being a bit pushed a little bit to the borders. Right. What could somebody do with data from an immigrant advocacy website? There would be forums on there. There'd be asks, requests for help, legal advice, lawyers on there that are working with illegal immigrants, legal migrants, whatever. They could be targeted because of their affiliation with this site, leading to things like ICE deportations. Stuff in the UK is not exactly great. As I say, thankfully, Finland, as far as I'm aware, are not doing any of those things, thankfully, yet. Right. What would they do with a Pride newsletter, people who are signing up for Pride? So many of you that are really nerdy might be thinking, well, MailChimp, nice and safe, we're sending our newsletter from there. But it might be that your graphic designer didn't like the natural embed from MailChimp. Maybe they wanted a Gravity Forms integration in the background where the data is still saved in your WordPress. And then that data has never been cleared in the past 10 years. And then that data leaks out to somebody, right? What could they do with that? There are still places in Europe where you can be arrested for attending a Pride parade. So obviously this is not something, thankfully, that we've had here, but Anyway, you can't organize these things on social media anymore. That's just a fact. All right. Union membership websites. Unions are still pretty strong in Finland, but there's plenty of corporations who do not want their workers unionized. People can lose their jobs. I mean, obviously, getting arrested or deported is a lot worse than losing your job, but it's still, it affects your life quite badly, obviously. All right. So it's enough to make you want to hide out in your bunker with your tinfoil hat and a few sausages and turun sinappi vahva. And this was the lovely image that it made that day. The turun sinappi looks really weird, but I wasn't going to Photoshop it in. It was probably copyright anyway. So by now we can see there's real life consequences when data security is mishandled. And we're probably all depressed, and I'm sorry. It's still early in the morning. We all want our lunch. But, it's just a fact. Right. So we get to the good bit now. How do we fight back? How am I doing for time? Am I okay? Yes? Nope. 2 minutes. All right. It feels hopeless sometimes, but that's kind of how they operate. Hopelessness leads to inaction. Thank you. Organizations that are taking a stand against hostile governments are usually grassroots organizations. They don't have budget for security audits and consultants, so we can help by providing platforms for these worthy organizations. And I'm going to say a swear word now, pro bono, right? Most of us are in big companies now, so, pro bono is definitely a swear word. But anytime that we can help these companies, we should, it helps. We can be proactive by thinking about how, when we build the website, putting safeguards in place by default and being mindful with a security-first approach. Think about how you're building the site, how people could attack it. Think and connect methods that wouldn't usually be used to attack a website and be paranoid by default, which is great for security but bad for mental health. I'm warning you now. But when you're building a website, you're creating multiple layers of security, DNS level, DDoS mitigation using Cloudflare or similar. Dia's coming up soon. She's going to tell you how to do that. Server level, we want quality service providers. We want to know where the servers are located. We want to lock down ports, make sure the updates are up to date. Web application level, we want web access firewalls, brute force protection, 2FA and hardening, and we want remote logging, monitoring, and backups. So there's a lot we can do. We can minimize surface attack area by minimal of third-party dependencies, which is going to be written on my gravestone, I'm sure. But Janne, who did a talk just before this, also had a really good point as to why we use try and remove the use of third-party libraries, because we're only using 5 functions out of those bloody external libraries that's also using carbon footprint, but it's also causing security problems. Custom coded if possible, because they last longer. Triple checking any code that deals with sensitive information. Oh my God, here we go. Sorry, got to get faster. Information leakage, check your endpoint, site maps, uploads, feeds for information leakage. 70% of audited websites that I've done have file upload directory listing. All the file uploads are just sitting there waiting for everybody to find them. Viewing the HTML of a page can give a lot of insights to security posture. And so there is a lot that we can do. We can preserve what the internet was intended for, which was an exchange of free thoughts and ideas. And the absolute best thing we can do is to proactively help our clients, keep speaking up when we see injustice, and whatever else, do not give up. Just keep going. There we go. That's it.